should make some coffee. That's what I should do. Alright. Remy sitting here so polite. We are, I think we're recording. Yes, so welcome to episode 4 of Mystery of Christos Epopteia of the 144,000. We are ascending back up Jacob's ladder. And what I mean by that is last episode we discussed with Remy here, we discussed how the soul descends into the earth by its spirit, and that is the spirit being the we'll call this the primitive form of man. So you start as the seed in spirit form, and from there you come into the earth in the material form. Therefore, your soul is suspended between the spirit and the flesh. It is, from what we understand, the ancients in the East say it's a 4-inch high flame within the solar plexus, the solar plexus. So your spirit is driving this material form of the body, and it assumes essentially a solar form later. So they have these the spiritual triad that we had mentioned before, that is the spindle of life that puts into motion the 4 elements. So you are made up essentially of 4 gross elements, and everything from that becomes 2 form. So what I mean by that is that you can have 4 elements, or let's say 4 elements in the spiritual triad. From that appears to make a 7 colors, just like in the rainbow. You have 7 colors, 7 rays of light, and everything in between that are semi or half a color. So you have mixed, you interlace 2 colors and you appear to have another color. So you have in between, let's say yellow and red, you get orange. Between green and or blue and yellow, you get green. So those are semi-colors, or just a duality, or what am I looking for? The byproduct of 2 intermingling elements. So your body essentially is made up of many different types of elements, but the 4 main would be fire, air, earth, and water. Earth being mineral, water is the liquid, the fluids, air being the gaseous, and fire would be the plasma. So these all contain within it spiritual qualities and spiritual elements. So from the spirit, we're descending into this earth. And so what I did here is I put a chart for us to kind of go off of, and the top being what we want to call the plane of Pluto. This is the Empyrean. So excuse me, Remy. So from here we have 3 planes. So this would be the first plane, this would be the second plane, and this would be the third plane. And the reason why I drew a line through this one, it looks like 4, because this is what we call the firmament. And this what separates the spiritual or ethereal from the physical realm. So everything below that line is a physical form or materiality. So this is the glyph for Earth. Remember, we had said in this last episode that it's a circle with a cross in it to signify the 4 seasons of the Earth, and how the sun makes its rounds every 3 months and it hits a new stop. So the sun would stop over the, or if you want to say the Earth is rotating and it's on a 23-degree angle every 3 months, it's wobbling. That's fine, you can believe that. But right here in this channel we're going geocentric, so it's a sun over the flat Earth. And the reason why is because that is the most, even though it's a primitive form, it is the most accurate. So to have the diagram or the Ptolemaic schematic of the Earth to be a geocentric one is always 100% accurate. So we're going to show you the importance of why the flat Earth is so significant in science. And if you don't want to consider that scientific, that's fine. But here it's scientific, and we're using it as 100% proof. So back to this, you have 3 planes. According to the Kabbalah, we want to call this one Kether. So from here, we're going to call this Ain. Ain in Hebrew is the letter for the eye. And the Hebraic alphabet is every single one of the letters, or glyphs if you want to call it that, they appear to represent an action rather than an actual noun. So there is no such thing as a noun when it comes to the Hebrew alphabet. They always use action. So the letter Ain, or I, in Hebrew is representing the I. It's actually the Yod, that's I, the letter I or Y. O is actually the letter it represents, but it's pronounced Ain, which means an eyeball or a deep abyss. So that's what that represents here. It represents an eye, or in this case, it'll represent a deep, an abyss. I mean, if you think about what an eye is, it is something that's able to perform the sense of sight. So to present sight, that means there's a body part in your body that is a sensor of light, and it's able to perceive a vast surrounding of itself. So the eyeball is one of the most symbolic and most used in esoteric or occult sciences. And the reason why, it's also the Freemasonic, it's the emblem of the Freemason, because the third eye is it's essentially the occult symbol of the Freemason, because it is the vision within. It's the eye that sees from the light within. So to receive the light from the outside, from the sun, and to light the inside of your body through the third eye that's within. That's essentially why it is the eye of Providence, or the eye of Horus, who actually, when he wins the war between him and his brother, or him and Set, he regains the sight of his third eye, or the eye that was lost. Odin in the Nordic philosophies also has his eye thrown into the sea. He gouged out his own eye for eternal wisdom. So that's something, because he also relinquished his physical desire to have the physical body, so he could become one of spirit, to be a pure spirit. So that is also one of the reasons why it's so important. So the aim, we're going to say, is the deep abyss. So all this is just darkness. There's a vast space out here. But remember, space isn't just nothingness. It is to us, it's nothingness, but it's the vast sea of binding. So space is between everything. Space is the binder to all things. Right here, it is the binder to the universe. So outside of that is basically the shell of the egg. So Kether is here, and Kether means the crown in Hebrew. And according to the Kabbalah, the reason why it's given that is because it represents the outer shell of the auric egg. So there is a belief in also the occult. They say that the outside of the universe is like a shell of an egg. So you're living within a sphere, not on a sphere. So the outside being Kether. Below that would be the crystalline sea of Uranus, or in the Greek philosophy it's Uranus. We already went deep down that rabbit hole, talking about how Kronos had castrated his father, who was Uranus or Uranus, and he was the king of the throne. And he had Kronos, his first son, right there. That's the glyph for Saturn and Kronos. And he was the one that took over the throne from his father. Only temporary though, because eventually Zeus, with divine will, had eventually took it back and regained the throne, because he ends up the hero of the story, saving his brothers and sisters, who are the rest of the planets. That was also eaten by, or devoured by Kronos, devoured by time. So eventually these planets were devoured by time, and it's believed by the early Hindus or the Brahmins that the life of the universe lives for 7 eternities, and they call that a day and night of Brahma. And the way it works is that Brahma takes a breath, inhaling and exhales, and each time he does that, there's existence on the eternal plane for life, and then the exhales, which means it erases it all, and it is hugged back into the arms of eternity. So that's essentially what's happening here, is that there's these ebb and flows of life here, and when you see the ruins of the world, you're basically seeing what's left, or the remnants of something that used to be. And if you ask me, I would tell you that there was at one time a golden era where the whole earth was all flourishing at one time together as a one world universe. And you can kind of tell that by seeing that there's pyramids in different countries and different continents that happen to be representing the same thing in the same kind of way, and they all represent a worship to the sun. So all these pyramids and ziggurats aren't giving worship to just the sun in the way where they're worshiping it as a god. They're representing it as a symbol to what Plato or Pythagoras calls the the blazing sun. And he too, so Ptolemy, who gave us the flat earth or the geocentric universe, said he got all his work from Pythagoras. So here we are, and this shows us what was I saying about the blazing sun. So the blazing sun being past the Empyrean, outside of outer space, Empyrean. Alright, the Empyrean. So that's where we have the blazing sun. So it's like looking down all these layers of glass, and that they are different levels or different lights coming through different tones of glass, different shades of glass, different thickness, different viscosities, and you're essentially getting a caustic light through this sun here. So you have to get light to go through this, pierce through this big, vast, dark universe that comes through 3 different planes before it gets to the firmament. Then from the firmament, it comes down, and the 3rd from the top, or the 4th from the top and the 4th from the bottom, is suspended the sun, which was always seen to be at the center of all the planets. Beside the sun, on both sides, is Mars and Venus. So just like man, beside the center of the spine, or the brain, you have an arterial system and a venous system. Well, arteries comes from Ares, who is the Greek god who wears red. He's a warrior. This is where your arteries comes from, Ares. arteries, and then you eventually have a venous system. Now you'll even notice the color of the blood is different on both sides. It looks like the arterial system is always represented as red in medical books, and the venous system is always represented as being greenish blue. So this is the venous system. That looks horrible, by the way. And then this is Venus. The Egyptians called this, they called that planet the Bennu. It's represented by a bird called the Bennu bird. Now, your soul descends through the 7 planes, and when it does so, you live here for about 7 decades before it's over. So there's these series of 7s that always seem to be the most important of numbers. And after 7 decades, or when your lifetime is over, your physical body tends to deteriorate as we get older. They call this process the crystallization in the occult. What happens from that point on is that you leave behind your physical form. Your body essentially will die. But that's not over. Your spirit is eternal. Just like race, you have a world that's so racist nowadays, but it should not be that. We are essentially all one race, the human race, and it's just different colors, and everybody will eventually, through reincarnation, you're gonna eventually be that person that you hated, who was your worst enemy. You're eventually gonna come back one day to be refined as a soul, and you will live that life, and you will see through that person's eyes and experience their experiences, unfortunately. But that's only so your soul is refined and becomes a better soul and perfected, and will eventually become a spirit or a soul body or an angel body. I know it's always seen in religion as angels with wings, and yeah, no, that's just a representation. So back to what we're saying here. When you're done with this life, you're going to end up back into a soul body, a body of light, a proponent to the universe. So you're going to see that God isn't a man sitting on top of clouds with a big white beard. God is actually emotion, like what Plato says. God is it's a motion, it's a spindle, and we are playing the part as part of God to be living here today, and then eventually be with God. That's what it always says in the Bible when they translated it from Hebrew and Greek text to English, to be with God, to go with God, because God is in motion. God is not one thing just sitting still. It is always moving and ever flowing. So from there, your body will eventually go back to the earth, and your spirit goes back to where it came from. And what you learned here on this earth will go with you to the next life. So say you're born here as an Asian, a black, Mexican, white person, whatever, a mix of that's fine too. The next life, you'll be ready for that next life, prepared through experiences that you took with you, and that will help be your new personality towards a better life in the next one. So even though it seems like time takes forever some days in the life that you're living, and it's dragging out because you're stressed out, I assure you not to worry, because it is, by the time you're old enough to realize it, it was really just a flash of light that just went by, and you're gonna take away from something. Basically, like your work of life will be what they say in the esoteric. They say that you build your temple. That is who you are, what you became, what your temple was built of. So some like Kobe was, he was one of the best basketball players, and he died young. His temple is built around his career, who he was, but still, we know him as a basketball player, but he was a great person. Same thing with Nipsey Hussle, Mac Dre, Tupac, all these people, they were known as good rappers, great rappers, legends even. But they were more than that. So they had a good impact before they left. And so that soul body is creating a God in the next life. So you're basically snowballing into this great motion, this great component to the universe. Okay. So now, what I was wanting to really get the point for people to understand is that there's this thing in India that they call the chakras. These 7 chakras that we have within us. They are 7 moving centers of life that you have within. You can't really poke one and find one along the spine. You may think so, but they exist only really inside your brain. A lot of people think that the spirit is in the mind, and the mind is basically a room, a container of thoughts. Thoughts being a bunch of compounds of consciousness, of conscious ideas. And so the mind, therefore, is the container of thoughts. Your brain, you think through it, not with it. So it's always sorting things out. Everything is there, memorized. You got a lot of things blocking certain areas. So aligning the chakras is a way of organizing those thoughts, so to say. You get what I'm saying? So a better way to explain it is there's seven whirling centers of energy in your body, and each one at a time from the bottom up will essentially unlock the next one, or for the next opportunity to get better at that. And the Indians organized this in 7 ways of pointing out these 7 virtues, along with 7 sins. You've heard Plato represent these, in they call them the seven deadly sins, I guess, and the 7 virtues of love. And those are what you're going to use to labor those, not work them, because to work them means that you're just doing it in vain. To labor them means that you're trying to figure them out. You got to touch them and feel them and get your hands in them to figure out how to grasp them and how to harness it. So that's what you want to do with the 7 chakras. And you start from the lowest part of your spine, and then you work them on up until you get to the 3rd eye. And then from there, the parietal is where they call the Sahasrara. That is where your 7th chakra is. That's the 1000th petal chakra. So each chakra has a certain amount of petals. They all equal to 144. The book I wrote is called The Mystery of the Christos Epopteia of the 144,000. That 144,000 is when you open up that last chakra, the 1000 petal chakra. You're now working 144,000 petals. Those are 144,000 nerve endings that your body is now unlocked, and now your spirit is ready for the next life. So the point I'm trying to make is that when your soul descends through these 7 levels, and you end up here on the earth, you're eventually trying to make your way back home. And the way you do that is through these breadcrumbs that I'm laying for you. And you labor your 7 chakras till you eventually learn how to manage them. And when you do, your soul body is now prepared for the next life. Whether you choose to come back as a human, you want to come back as a flower, you want to come back as an animal, you want to come back as a rock, you can do that. But this is how you do it. You have to figure out what these 7 chakras are in you. Everybody's is different. You assign your own and you learn your own, and when you do that, you ascend back up these 7 levels. In my book here, I have wrote down what the seven parts of the soul are, and I wasn't going to give them to you, but I'm going to give them to you anyway. So the 7 parts of the soul, whoops, that wasn't supposed to happen. The 7 parts of the soul in descending order is the Atmu, or the Atma in esoteric Hindu. In the 6th would be the Puta, or the Budai in the Hindu. The next would be Seb, Aku, Kaba, Ba, and Ka. So let's go through them. This is what I wrote. In Egyptian metaphysics, the soul is viewed as a complex creature that has its function as an intact mechanism within the body of man. Once separated from the human vehicle, fragments of the soul find their experience in independent levels of spiritual planes. It appears that in the Egyptian funerary arts, there are depictions of the soul's active role as only components rather than complete beings of a psychical body. 7 modules complete the constitution of the human soul, and these are, now we're going up the ladder. Ka, that's the vehicle of the human body, acting as the cradle which houses the soul, symbolized by a fish. Ba is the vital spirit of the soul, existing. Ba is the vital spirit of the soul existing within the breath. That's corresponds to the prana in Hindu. The Kaba is the astral twin or the shadow casting of a mold or impression of the person. The Aku is the intelligence or the perceptive soul. Seb is the dynastic or genus extracted soul, so that's your ancestral soul. Seb is the dynastic or genus soul. Puta is the primary Godhead or directional soul. Atmu is what is the immortal or divine self. So the Atma of the Hindus. When I did a illustration last time, I did a circle to represent the whole being of your divine self, and that is the Paramatma. So that means the whole shebang, even the outside magnetic field that you can't see. Now you can, when you get near somebody, you can sense their vibes, if they're good people or they're bad people. Not to judge somebody, but to feel what kind of mood they're in. If they're kind of like angry, you don't want to tip them off and get them to the point where they're actually spazzing out in front of you. That's when you know, you can tell when somebody's vibes are hot or if they're kind of cool or not. So, and the eternal soul is symbolized by fire or the flame. And then the final and complete soul is regarded as the 8th plane called the Horus soul. And it is the karmic or future summation of the soul. So, and then of course there's the Ren. The Ren has the name. So those are essentially the 7 parts to the soul. And that's why it's important to remember, if you don't believe in the flat earth, to at least know it, to get a feel for it. So that way you can at least see that it's earth-centered, it's human-centered. That means that your life, the human being, is the most important of the universe. We are to be the big brothers to the animal kingdom. You are here to tailor, to grow your garden and tend to your flocks, and not to harm them, not to put them in harm, but to take care of them, and to do the same with your children. It's the same thing. You should always love one another. You shouldn't want to harm somebody. There's no need to want to harm somebody. So I'm trying to keep this video a little shorter because I tend to have the problem of letting this camera keep rolling and I keep talking, and then before I know it, the battery's dead. But yeah, we just wanted to go ahead and just kind of present that to you in a real simple kind of way. I do thank you for coming out today, watching the video and being a part of it. Be prepared for the next one, man, because I'm going to just keep them rolling. Life is just a big juggling act. It's like juggling cats, man. So we will emerge through the darkness, and when the smoke clears, goodness will prevail. So again, thank you for coming out, and always love one another, and be safe, and peace out. Namaste, homies.